Salutations everybody, it is your friendly neighborhood wannabe Vault Boy here with another Outer Worlds video. This is part 2 of that list of 5 things series I came up with. Last time I did 5 things that I think simply need to improve for the Outer Worlds. If you want to check that out, it'll be linked in the description down below. Today, in part 2, we're talking about 5 things I absolutely loved with this game and my experience. And I mostly loved everything, so it was hard to condense it into 5 things on this list, but I did it. I managed to do it. We had to keep it symmetrical because I could only think of 5 things I needed to improve. So I had to keep it fair and do 5 things I loved. So let's get this one started, and it begins with the dialogue. This is Obsidian's bread and butter, and it screams at you off the screen as soon as you fire the game up. My first conversation, instantly, there were words jumping off the page at me. My brain was sparkling with imagination based off of the descriptions that Obsidian was providing for me. All the writing, the character building, it was there instantly. But there's also finer nuances in Obsidian's dialogue that need to also be appreciated. Something like, for example, companion interjections. This is a system that I love to death. I cannot believe how much talking there is with the companions. They are very lifelike, whether you're exploring, whether you're talking with someone else. They always got something to say, and it's not in the annoying way. They are meaningful interjections that build character, build personality, funny moments, intriguing moments, insightful moments. And once again, this was just in a nice hour-and-a-half slice while I was out there playing this game. Just that tiny slice jumped off the page at me that much. Now, we could sit here and debate all day how maybe Obsidian crafted a very specific press build, but all I'm saying is that if what they've created here is representative of the entire product, it is going to be an RPG player's wet dream. I mean, there is some really good dialogue here, like I always highlight, and it's in my brutally honest opinion video, but the history of Monarch is supremely interesting stuff. The writing is so good, it invites you into the universe and just pulls you in. You are hooked right away, and that is why this game will live and die off of the storytelling, which clearly so far what I've seen is far superior than most companies in this industry. Number 2 was one I did not expect. We've seen a lot of the Outer Worlds between PAX East, E3, the initial reveal. I've analyzed every single nook and cranny of this game throughout its entire development, but yet it wasn't until I actually played the game that the art style and environmental design hopped off the page at me. Now, stuff like verticality, tall buildings were something I didn't expect in this game. Climbing hills, but also tiny caves tucked away in the corner, meaningful stories packed into those areas, but also the use of color, the way that every environment has this own look and feel and feels distinctly created for a specific purpose. What I see is a lot of thought and passion here, and it makes sense because Obsidian has said this is their dream game. But all I'm saying is something about the work here shows that people who love their job made what was happening here in this game. And that made me thrilled because I was enjoying being a part of that universe, and there are little details and things you just see happening around you that you know someone who wanted to make this place feel real brought into the game. Stuff like little particle effects dripping from the ceiling in Fallbrook, the little difference in lighting between that and other towns you can visit in the game, or towns that we've seen in various trailers. It's just mind-boggling the amount of love that's being packed into these locations, and I'd kill to see the concept art for this game, to see the before and after, like, okay, this is what we want to make the area, and this is what happened when we created it. I think it would be really fascinating stuff. And usually, while I appreciate the artists, most underrated creators out there, anywhere, people don't give them enough love, I usually don't go goo goo gaga for concept arts because I just care about the actual game. But still, this is one game I would make an exception for, and I'd love to see that concept art. Number 3, the humor. Now, this could tie into dialogue, but I feel it's its own entity because Obsidian is known for a bit of dark humor. But when I'm playing a game, maybe I'm just like real boring. I don't know. But I don't laugh a ton. And obviously the exceptions there are something like South Park, which is clearly a game designed for humor. But other than that, I see people firing away on the timeline, telling me how funny this game is. Oh, I laughed my butt off at this. I'm just like, what? Like, I'm just sitting there with a straight face, like fully into what I'm doing. And maybe it's because I get mesmerized, but all I'm saying with the Outer Worlds, in a press environment nonetheless, where, you know, you gotta keep up some appearances, you know, try to be at least somewhat professional. I'm like sitting there like a goofball, like, ah! This shit was so funny. Some of the dialogue in this game actually cracked me up. I mentioned it in my brutally honest opinion video, and they're the best examples. And I want to limit these examples, by the way. That's because I reuse them, and I want to make sure I don't spoil anything for anyone. If you're just watching my coverage and my coverage only, we're going to reuse some points there because I think it's important to keep the experience fresh for all of you. But stuff like threatening to laminate a lawsuit, stuff like screaming "Oh law," and putting drugs in rat poop and searching through them, and the guy saying, "Did you find my my sprats?" You know, stuff like this that I didn't really expect in this game to find funny, but it's the execution, and I think it carries over to the voice talent. The voice talent in this game is actually quite good. There's a certain quirk to them. It's not like all of them are these, you know, Laura Bailey and Nolan North, you know, you're all stars in voice acting. You know, these seem like tinier, passionate voice actors and actresses that maybe we haven't heard before, and they add their own little quirks and bit of personality to the game, and it becomes its own beast. There's just something about it. But back to the original point, game's hilarious. It really is, and it's such a messed up universe. That's why that's also why I separate it from dialogue and humor, because in the dialogue there are those moments of seriousness, like learning the truth behind Monarch. But on the other hand, there's those hilarious moments like searching through poop and getting drugs, and you're like, okay, this is very much a video game too. Because I was having a chat with my girlfriend. We were watching old movie clips from the 50s to the 70s, and we were reminiscing on how these times very much were about entertainment. Not every game was trying to reach out to you and emotionally rip you up and deliver this heart-wrenching tale. Sometimes things were just fun. And what's special about The Outer Worlds, and I wouldn't be surprised if I had to repeat this in my review, is that this game has its moments of seriousness where it's telling you something that builds the universe, that builds the world around you, but it's also entertaining. It's fun to be there. It's just a fun game to play, and it meshes those two together in a way that we don't see all too often, especially in its genre. Anyway, enough of that. Number 4 is the Gunplay. It's a lot more sharp than I expected, and that's why it's on this list. It's something that just went beyond my expectations. It's nothing out of this world. I still think games that I've played in the past, first-person shooter-wise, or in press previews like Borderlands 3, play much better as a shooter. But Obsidian's historically had not the best gameplay. You know, we have New Vegas as a shooter, we have Alpha Protocol's gameplay, which really got that game torn up because it was entirely skill-driven. At least in the Outer Worlds, you can aim, you can shoot a target, and it will land if you are aiming at them. It's not about what your dexterity is or what your perception skill is, because while we want that to tune the experience, not all of us want it so literally, myself included, I'll be honest, that we can't hit someone we're shooting at, because it brings about that old school, we'll say, Morrowind disconnect, and I'm going to use that example because it's a game I've been playing a lot on stream, where your sword skill isn't high enough, so you're swinging at an enemy, and then right in front of you, you're like, any human being with this many swings would connect on one of these hits, but for some reason, you just can't. And so that's not what's happening here in this game, and thank goodness it isn't. Number 5, the last thing I really loved about this game is simply its tightness. I liked how it was a much more compact experience. I've been drawn to those games much more often than not this year, maybe because my free time has become crunched down a little bit. I still have time for the bigger projects and the bigger games, but a lot less frequently. But in the case of The Outer Worlds, seeing a game that makes sure every step along the way, every character you choose to interact with has something interesting to say, something fun to say, a quest to give out, or a world's hint to lead you somewhere, it makes sure that your time's not wasted, where even if I'm sitting down for an hour to 3 hours, it does not matter. I'm going to make sure that it's worth my time. And I think that is so good. I think that's so powerful because it reminds me of KOTOR, where if I sat down for 3-4 hours, I could bang out a planet. And while there are multiple planets you can go to in KOTOR, which combine to like a 20 to 25 hour experience, depending on how experienced you are with that series, I still think that it's amazing that you can make that feeling of progress there because you completed a single world. And there's a lot of intermittent storytelling happening throughout the world. It's not just the main story, there's other things happening if you go off the beaten path. And a lot of that building is in the Outer Worlds. So I gotta say, I love that level of tightness, how compact the game is, where it's gonna be highly replayable. We're retreading those old grounds, provided that Obsidian takes the role-playing seriously, which they seem to have done very well, mind you. Then all will be okay, and we will have multiple playthroughs in there where these areas will continue to be fresh, and I think that compact nature helps fuel their vision for this game. But anyway, that will conclude the two-part series for 5 things with the Outer Worlds. One being things I feel could improve, and the other being things that I loved. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys next time. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.